So what's up with these summer interludes, Chad? Were you a little surprised when you saw the episode pop up in your feed reader? Come on, I bet you were. You know, season 1 ended just, I think, like 10 days ago. And you might be thinking, okay, what's going on? And then Chad's sitting here showing up in my feed this early. I thought the season was over. I don't know what's going on. All those things. Probably not. You probably didn't think nearly as much about it as I did. But I wanted to kind of pop in and let you know that, you know, the podcast is not taking the summer off. You know, summer's a season where all sorts of different things change and such. I saw something on Twitter about how people say they love the summer because when they were kids, it meant they had a couple of months off, and it helps them remember or helps them forget that this season is actually quite dreadful. And whereas I don't know if I'd call summer dreadful or not, I will tell you what, the thing I have said the most to my wife over the last couple of days is, it is hot out here. But summer interludes, what's going on? What's up with Productive Pastor? And so I'm coming in to give you a couple things. A little bit of a personal update, but then also just an update as to where we're going and what's going on with the podcast, with the community, just with the whole Productive Pastor vibe over the summer. So quick, short episode, but it'll be a fun episode. So a couple of things. Number one, a little update. A lot of people know this, and depending on how much you follow me at the various socials, you might have heard I've moved, and not just have I have moved, but I've actually really kind of changed up what everyday, day-to-day ministry looks like for me. And we've been working towards this over the last 9 months, but it is getting close to being 100% realized and actualized. But a few weeks back, I left the church that we started 9 years ago, and we moved 2 hours south to be closer to family, but also to follow this call that has been just sitting in my heart for the last several years. Most of you know I went through a pretty major health scare in 2019, and really and truly since that moment, I've been asking myself questions about what I wanted the second half of my life to be like, but also able to devote as much as I could to making sure there was a second half of the life. You know, my wife and my family always roll their eyes when I make jokes about having congestive heart failure, but the reality is Chad has congestive heart failure and has lived with it for the last 3 years, and I want to live with it for a long, long time. So that was one of the big reasons. The second big reason is, over the last couple of years, my wife and I, we just miss family and the idea of being close to family and being part of family and having that rhythm in our life is something that we really wanted. I also realized that it was really interesting being in ministry to tons of folks my age and not having kids. It meant like it was just the decision-making matrix was just getting more and more different. So we made that decision for a multitude of reasons. We felt God calling us direction, and we saw just doors opening dramatically once we started exploring it. So what am I doing right now? So a couple things. Number one, I did not leave the local church. I actually requested less than part-time status in the Methodist Church, which is all sorts of complicated things. But I'm going to start in July pastoring 2 tiny little country churches that are about 30, 45 miles away from where we live. It's a multi-point. One's a rural church, the other one's not so much. But it's going to be a completely different style and type of ministry, really, than I've done in over 15 years. And so that's going to be a thing. But, you know, we've had so many conversations about bivocational ministry, or I really like the new word that you see people use a lot now, co-vocational. Those are popping up more and more and more around the Productive Pastor world. And if you've been curious to hear more about that, well, your boy's going to start doing it. So you will find out more about that. The second thing is I'm working with a company that's out of Western North Carolina called Passion and Partnership. And as a coach and as a developer inside of several different programs that they run that resource multiple United Methodist annual conferences across our country. I've had a relationship with them for over 5 years. I was coach trained by them in 2019, and I am just super, super stoked to work even deeper with them. I've benefited from passion and partnership coaching with a guy named Steve James, who some of you might know. I need to get Steve on the podcast to just talk about, because he is amazing in all sorts of things. But I'm going to be working with them in a significantly heavier capacity from now on out. And then also I'm doing a little bit of personal private coaching. That hasn't gotten spelled out as much as I would like it to right now. But I have heard from a couple people that say, Chad, are you doing one-on-one work right now? And the answer is yes. Some people have asked me, Chad, are you working directly with churches right now? And the answer is yes. But I'm getting the lines drawn out around those couple of things right now. But if you're interested in that, you just want to just kind of inquire, Chad, what does it look like to work with you? Do me a favor, just drop me an email, revchadbrooks@gmail.com. Would love to talk with you about what maybe some of your personal needs are and what some of the stuff your church is looking for. I'll tell you right now that with churches, I'm really interested and excited about databases, about creating engagement systems, about understanding what does it mean to have people inside of your orbit in this post-COVID environment. And then as far as one-on-one coaching, I like really action-focused, directed type things. But that's it. People ask what I'm doing. So those are the three things that I'm doing now. And really there's a fourth thing, and it's what you're listening to right now. It's Productive Pastor. This is this community of folks that I love. And what I'm learning is we're more and more alike in certain ways than other ways. And I'll probably explore that more and more and more over the next few weeks. So that's kind of the first big chunk, the update from the personal side of things. So the second update, the final update, is the summer. Chad, what's going on with the podcast and with the whole, Productive Pastor world this summer? And we got some stuff going on. So a couple of things. I want to remind you of the way that we're designing just the podcast out now is that we will have specific focused seasons. We just finished up one of those, season 1. And then we have interlude episodes. And this summer, we're going to have some interludes. I'm working on what might be a really cool focus season. It won't be as directive, possibly, but it will be really cool. But I'm talking to several pastors who I kept up with and I watched throughout the pandemic. And these are all like normal, regular, everyday type of churches. And I'm working on a season called Pandemic Pastoring. We get to look inside of different people's leadership styles, the decisions they made, decisions they wish they would have made, some of the rhythms, the things they've learned, all that through the last couple of years. And so I'm really interested in that. The interludes, these are like one-shot episodes. I'll tell you right now, I'm working on an episode that's going to be really action-focused, but it's called How I'm Moving, where I talk about what does it mean to move into a new church. And I know that not all of our listeners are United Methodist, but a lot of our listeners are. And this is the season where Methodist pastors move. And so I'm actually working on an episode right now about how I'm moving, which really is what are the intentional decisions I am making as I move into a new appointment, a new church role, new churches that I'm leading. And so that should come out in the next week or so. I've got an annual conference like tomorrow. And so we'll see how much gets done over the course of the next week. But I'm bringing the whole podcast rig down there with me, and so hoping multiple cool things can happen down there. So a couple other interludes, some high-level skills. Talk about what does it mean to build discipleship systems. You might have heard me talk about Daniel M's book, No Silver Bullets, in the last season a bunch. I've got a friend who's going to be on as part of the pandemic pastoring thing who is excellent at this. So we might have, 2 episodes with him talking about these discipleship systems, this sort of stuff. I want to talk about what does it mean to review and to assess things and how to do this in a healthy way and not turn into like the Arlie Ermy character on Full Metal Jacket. I want to talk about journaling some and what does journaling mean for our ministry, for our productivity, but also just our mindfulness, that sort of stuff. There's other stuff we have going on. I'm kicking around the idea of a whole focus season about preaching, but finding a different angle to take on it than that kind of thing. I've also got a list of notes, and I've heard back from some people about wanting to go even deeper into systems. And so like a Systems 201 season. But this is the last piece of this summer update, because you're going to be getting weekly episodes for the most part over the summer. But this is what I want you to do right now. So go to the show notes. They're going to be inside of this podcast feed, or the link's going to be inside of Productive Pastor Community on Facebook. There's not going to be a show note page for this on revchadbrooks.com. But I've got a survey that's the season 1 survey, and it lets me know what you enjoyed the most, what you found the most helpful, but also is tons of space for you to ask about things in the future. Because this is not just this place where I randomly vomit all the Productive Pastor stuff I think about in the head, but this is about this community. This is about all of us being on side of this journey together, about all of us just being normal pastors in usual situations and learning what this journey is like so we can follow God, we can follow our call, we can also be healthy and true to ourselves, to our family, and to our ministries. This is just a huge part of who I am now. I really am at the point to where I can't imagine just not being inside of this Productive Pastor conversation. I've heard from people back about season 1. They enjoyed how we got past a hack-based conversation, but they loved how we kept it practical. And so that's what's going on this summer. We're just going to continue to delve deeper into this. So there's a couple things I want you to do. Number 1, go hit up that survey if you've not yet. Just however you're listening to this podcast, there's going to be a link to take that survey inside of those description boxes, or go to the Productive Pastor Community on Facebook. And here's the thing. If you're not part of the Productive Pastor Community on Facebook, come boogie and hang out over there. I want to see 1,000 people in that group, and we've been flirting with that number for the last several months. So if you're not there and you're hearing this, come hang out with us over there. That last thing, if you're curious about what it means to maybe work with me, just hit me up in the email, revchadbrooks@gmail.com. I'm building out space in the schedule right now, but like I said, there's space in the schedule, and I'm working on boundaries right now. So I would love to hear from you, see if we might be able to be a good fit of that. But thank you so much for tuning in to this update summer interlude episode. I'll be back next episode is that episode about how I am moving and how I want to do that well, and especially how I'm learning from the lessons from the past. And so until then, until I hear you next, I'm Chad Brooks. This is the Productive Pastor, and thanks for always coming and hanging out with us. I will see you back in the next episode.